In the last video, we learned about the basics of international trade in diagram, and we know that with free trade, it is much better for our society because when you look at the thing on the right hand side, after free trade, you will have a bigger social surplus, and which is good for the general efficiency in our society. So there's nothing bad about international trade, but you also want to put some focus on what happens to the domestic producers. And it's pretty obvious that after international trade, it's going to be bad for the domestic producers because when you just look at the PS, it's much smaller for PS after international trade. And as a government, sometimes you want to take care of different stakeholders, and in this case you wanted to protect those domestic industries. So there are so many different trade protections to protect the domestic industries, and today we're just going to focus on one of them, and which is tariffs. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure you guys already know about tariffs, and here I'm just gonna quickly go through the concept, and we'll go to the diagram drawing right away. Okay, so tariffs, they're basically just indirect tax. Okay, all right, so you can just treat it as another specific tax. So I would just call it tax per unit of imported goods. Okay, so in other words, when you have tax imposed to the imported goods, so for the importers, they will have higher cost of production. Okay, because of the per unit tax. So we can simply draw another curve to show the tariff effect. So very simply, we are going to draw another curve above the world supply curve, and we'll call that SW plus tariff. Okay, cool. All right, and we're gonna put another price label for it. So let's call that PW plus T. Okay, so you know what this distance here is. Okay, it's just the distance of, well, let me show you from another angle. It's just the distance of the tariff, the cost of tariff per unit of imported good that the importers sell to your country. Okay, all right, yeah. So this is basically the diagram. Okay, but this is not the most important part. The most important part is after we have drawn this trade protection diagram, the tariff diagram, how do we analyze this one here? So we are going to analyze this diagram bit by bit using different stakeholders. Okay, so let's start off with the domestic consumers. Okay, so before the tariff, the consumers, they were consuming at Q1 right here. Yeah, Q1. All right, you all see Q1, right? Yeah, but because of this tariff, look, the price is being dragged up. Okay, so now because they have to buy the product at a higher price, so they are only willing to buy less quantity of it. So now they are only willing to consume at Q3. Okay, because of law of demand. All right, simple concept. Yeah, so this is what happened to the consumers. Okay, very simple, right? And for the domestic producers, so let's take a look of what happened to the domestic producers. Okay, right. So before the tariff, only this amount of producers, they were able to survive, right? Okay, but after the prices being increased, so you will see, look, I'm just going to use another color to show you the idea. After the prices being increased, there will be more domestic producers that can survive in this competition because now the increasing price of that product can actually cover their costs. So I would say, look, after the price being increased, this much of the local producers, they are able to survive now, okay, because of the higher price to cover their cost of production. So which is good. So now more domestic producers, they are able to sell the goods in this market. So at the end, they are going to sell the goods at the quantity of Q4 right here. Okay, so based on the two pieces of information, Q3 and Q4, from what happened to the domestic consumers and producers, you know what will happen to the imports. Okay, because now the domestic producers, they are able to produce more, and the domestic consumers, they can only consume a less amount of goods. And that's why, this distance here, this is where the the importers, they are able to get their revenue from. Okay, all right, yeah, because after the domestic producers, they have sold their products, so here I would say that will become the new domestic production. All right, yeah, so up to Q4, and after Q4, all the way to Q3, that will be for the imports. Okay, does it make sense? Right? So yeah, so there you go. So this is what happened to the domestic consumers, producers, and also the importers. So this is the basics of this tariff diagram. And you know what? It's always important to know what happened to the CS and PS as well. Okay. So now when we look at the new CS and PS. So let's start off with the PS. Okay, all right. So because of the higher price generated by the tariff, so you see the original survivor, those people here. So now they can actually get more benefits because of the higher price. Okay, so their benefit should be increased because of the higher price. So for those people, for the original survivors, the domestic producers, their benefits will be increased by this much. Yeah, this much up to Q2 right here. All right. But don't forget, because of the higher price, now we have some new survivors in the domestic market. So for those new survivors, they also get some benefits. So their benefits is starting from Q2 to Q4. Yeah, this little triangle right here. All right. So after filling up the extra benefit, we can see, look, the PS for the domestic producers is actually increased because of the tariff, and which is good because this is what the government wants. Okay, to protect the local businesses. Okay, so that's good. All right, that's good. Yeah, so now we want to look at what happened to the CS. All right, so that's one idea. The CS must be reduced in this case because when you look at what happens in the diagram, the consumers, they're buying the products at higher price and they're consuming it at lower quantity. The CS must be lower than before. Okay, so here, when we are using the concept of drawing CS, it's going to start from the top all the way to the price that they are actually paying right now, which is PW plus T, and to where they are consuming, which is at Q3. So here, this is the red area here, that is your new CS, and for your blue area here, that is your new PS. All right, so after drawing the CS and PS, let's take a look of this diagram from a distance. So when we take a look of this diagram from a distance, we can actually draw it, draw something like the one on the right hand side. So let's draw it like this. Okay, well, let me readjust the size of it. Yeah, it should look like something like this. Yeah. So you see here, okay, so this is after tariff. So this is what happened to the society after tariff. So tariff, let me give it a title. Okay, right. And look, there's one interesting thing that you should be able to observe is that we have a missing bit right here. Okay, missing bit. So something is wrong in our society. So now let's focus on that trapezium. Okay, this missing bit of the trapezium and see what's in there. All right. So when you look at this trapezium, let's focus on this rectangle in the middle. So this rectangle in the middle. So we want to know what this is. So we know, look, the distance, okay, yeah, you know, the horizontal distance here for the rectangle is just the imported production, okay? And for the vertical distance here is just the tariff per unit. So we are certain that this area here, this white area here, this rectangle area here, is just the total tax revenue that our government will receive when the importers, they sell goods to our country. Okay, all right, yeah, does it make sense? So here, this area here is just the tax revenue, okay, from tariff. All right, yeah. And so, yeah, so now one down, okay, and two to go. So now and we know, look, when it is a tax revenue, eventually the tax revenue will go back to the society. So this area here is actually, you know, good to our society because eventually it will go back, yeah, to the society. So we'll say for the missing bit, this part is not missing anymore. It's actually still here in our society. Okay, right. So now we only have two more areas left that we have to investigate in. Okay, and which is, you know, the two triangles, one on the left and one on the right. Okay, and I can tell you for these two triangles, they are basically the deadweight loss. Okay, all right. So, and we can interpret the deadweight loss with two reasons. Okay, so we can start it off with the right deadweight loss. Yeah, so here, you know, I'm gonna use purple. Okay, so the one on the right, yeah, this triangle here. Okay, so this is a deadweight loss. So why this is a deadweight loss? So this is a deadweight loss because, you know, when you look at this demand curve here, is actually representing the dissatisfaction from consumers. Because, you know, when you have free trade, you could have enjoy more quantity of the goods with lower price. But now, because of tariff, you cannot do that anymore. So, you know, when you look at efficiency, you are losing efficiency. Yeah, because you could have enjoyed more goods, but now you cannot really do that because of tariff. So it's inefficient now. Okay, so here, look, for this part of the deadweight loss is because of the consumers, they are being unhappy. Okay, yeah, so the consumers, they are being sad. All right, okay, so yeah, so there you go. So that's one deadweight loss because of the consumers, they cannot enjoy as much as goods as before. All right, so now we can just go to the deadweight loss on the left hand side, this one here. Okay, so for the left hand side here, so you can just, you know, look at it, you know, based on this supply curve here. So this deadweight loss is basically about the producers, the domestic producers. Okay, because deadweight loss is basically when the society is losing efficiency. Okay, and because of this tariff, we know some domestic producers, they were not able to survive before the tariff was there, because they were not efficient enough to compete in the international trade market. Okay, but now because of the tariff, they can survive. So, but we all know the fact that those survivors, those new survivors, they are just less efficient. They are less efficient producers. So when you just focus on the topic of efficiency, this market is less efficient as before. Yeah, the market will be way more efficient when there's no tariff, and we are just trying to fill in the most competitive suppliers and producers in the market. So that's where you will see efficiency. But now, when the new producers, they can come in because of the tariff, because even they are less efficient. So you will see the sense of inefficiency because of that. So here, this dead weight loss on the left is because of the inefficient local producers. All right, yeah, the market will be much more efficient without those people. Okay, all right, even though you will see the domestic producers, they will get much less benefit, but when you think about the efficiency as a whole, it was much better before. Okay, so now the market is actually less efficient. So yeah, so from here, from this diagram, this is all you need to know for the tariff diagram. Okay, well, there are still quite a lot of different areas of calculations that you need to know, but as long as you know all these areas, so why we have those in our diagrams, then you'll be just fine doing the other calculations. Okay, so I hope you understand the theories for tariffs, and I'll see you guys in the next video.